All right.
Hello, everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in. This is the Raise Your Own Bar podcast. My name is Tamara Bucky, and with me today, I'm so excited to have Mr. Scott Dickers. If you're not familiar with Scott, Scott is one of the founders of The Onion. He founded the company How to Write Funny, and he now is a guru writing books, doing speaking engagements, traveling all over to share all things comedy with the world. Welcome, Scott. How are you?
Hi, Tam. Doing all right. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to have you. This has been a long time coming. And
Indeed.
full disclosure, Scott is one of my clients. He's a consistent client for my company where I help him do all kinds of administrative things, some consulting, some fun stuff too, like facilitating writers' rooms with other funny people, and just really enjoying you as a client, Scott. So very glad that you are helping me grow my small business.
I'm excited to be a part, and we have a lot of good laughs.
We
So
do.
it's all good.
And you're helping me raise my bar. That's part of the reason why I'm working with you is because I'm learning from you. And sometimes, finding the right mentors to help you meet your goals can really be the clincher you need to unlock, whatever barriers you may have had, or even those past stories we tell ourselves that get in where we get in our own way.
I'm a big believer in making everyone I know, everyone in my circle, a mentor, so that there's something to be learned from everybody, and everybody's better at something that I need to get better at. And so whether it's they're giving me feedback or whether they do something really effectively that I wish I did better, I notice. Um, I'm a big believer in that. And so I get a lot from you. Um, and I appreciate you saying you get a lot from me. Uh, it's uh, it's I think it's the best way to live and grow. So I appreciate your efficiency. You're a very efficient person, and you're very on the ball, and you're very professional. And I am a creative person, been a creative person my whole life. And I've always struggled with, probably internally, like just having this self-image of, oh, I'm not an organized person. I'm not a responsible person. I'm not together. I'm just a mess. I'm a goof, because everything I did was all very creative, and my head's in the clouds all the time. And when I've been on certain projects, I've had other people doing the organizing stuff for me, being the business person, so I didn't have to worry about it. And so that's been a lifelong struggle for me, is to try to get better at that stuff. And you help me.
Oh, well, that's wonderful.
You're a
Well,
very
I,
person.
I am somewhat organized, but I'm not as organized as I would like to be, of course. But that's, there's always room for improvement.
Of
But
course.
I kind of go back and forth. Like I'm a very creative person and I'm a hot mess, but at the same time, I am like obsessive. I genuinely have obsessive compulsive disorder, and so I get really nitty gritty down in the weeds with details. And like, for example, I'm a comedian and I keep all my jokes in a spreadsheet. So that way I can sort them. I rank them by grade A, B, C, D, F.
Right.
I keep all the data. How many is this R rated? Is this X rated? Is this G rated? How many seconds is this? So
So you can sort by any category.
yeah.
That's
Yep.
one.
That way I can go and pull out if I'm doing like a G rated event for corporate, I can go and figure out, okay, well, here's my joke pool, so to speak,
Right.
to pull from. And I kind of got the idea. So I do everything in spreadsheets, but I got the idea. I think it was Joan Rivers that talked about she had an individual card for every one of her jokes. And so I kind of took that and made it into a digital version using cells within a spreadsheet.
I remember from that documentary about her, seeing her organizational system, like having all her jokes in this enormous file. But yeah, it's got to be digital. So it's a great idea. It's a great system. It's amazing. I aspire to that.
Yeah, well, if
My
you ever,
joke was loose in in a big document, no organization whatsoever. And they're
oh,
also loose out there on various social media posts that I would have to go and find, unorganized, terrible.
yeah, it's funny you mentioned the social media posts. I have been running into like I'll come up with one-liners and then I'll just throw it on Facebook for whatever, just share my thoughts. And then later I might take that and refine it into an actual bit. The My joke writing process, I normally come up with one liner, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and then I'll kind of play with that idea and turn it into 1 minute, 90 seconds, or even a 5 minute, sometimes even a 10-minute long chunk of jokes. But I'm not doing a good job of harvesting those. So unless I put it in my joke notebook, as well as pasting it on social media, then I'm probably going to forget about it. So I might need to go back and like dig into my past posts just to see, because I know I've put some stuff out there that I can probably expand on.
Yeah, there's a gold mine out there. And I like to put stuff out on social media to see what kind of reaction it gets. And the stuff that gets the biggest reaction, that to me is like it knowing that it was in front of an audience and it got a big laugh, you know? So, that's a joke that maybe I could escalate. I could spool that out into a longer bit, you know, if it got a lot of likes on Twitter or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where I kind of start with initially, and maybe it's a little bit narcissistic, but if I make myself laugh, if I find a concept that's just like, it really makes me chuckle out loud, then I will try to figure out a way to turn that into a bit I can share with audiences. Even in that situation where I may have told Andrew and he didn't laugh, I will still try to come up with something, because if I find it funny, surely somebody else will.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy. I think, you know, I'm a big proponent, as you well know, of a process of coming up with jokes, you know, using the funny filters and knowing that there's a good chance they'll be funny. But there's really no arguing for making yourself laugh. Like if something is making you laugh, you have to try it. You have to put it out there. And if nobody gets it, screw them. You know, you had your laugh. You did great. And also, especially on stage, you're enjoying yourself. You're having fun. And that's an extremely attractive quality on stage.
Is to
So
laugh at your own jokes.
not to laugh at your own jokes, but to clearly be amused by your
Mm.
own humor and to be having fun doing it. That's essential. So it's always worth it to try those things on stage, I think.
I have a tendency to be very serious on stage, and I come across very deadpan, although that's not really my personality. I think my nerves get in the way when I'm in presentation mode, whether I'm doing comedy or doing a speech. And I kind of, it inhibits me from relaxing and really being as genuine as I want to be. So it's something I'm working on, so that when I record my special, I want to come across as very conversational as I can. And I know that I've had sets like that, but I think I have to get in the right mindset before I hit the stage.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I also just think experience is part of it. The more you do it, one of my favorite activities, favorite pastimes is looking at videos of comedians when they were just starting out. So people who are really famous now, seeing what they were like in the beginning. And in every case, they're stiffer.
Mm.
Now they're loose, they're themselves. Hey, you know, they laugh. You know, they'll do more improv or whatever. But in the beginning, they're like a little bit more stiff because they're just starting out. That's just how it is, you know. And so the more you do it, just be patient. I think your personality is going to come out. It probably is coming out now more than you realize. But the more you do it, the more it's going to come out, and it's going to be great. Like you said, you've had gigs where you felt it came out more, you know.
Hmm.
So
Well, and
that,
I find like I do improv too sometimes.
yeah, yeah,
I find that I've done this where I would do improv games and then comedy in the same gig. Like we would do improv games and then sets in between.
that's great.
If I did the improv games and allowed myself to be goofy and silly and like really loosen up, that set was just killer. So I
Totally.
do think there's something for me about getting into the silly, goofy, mindset before I hit the stage. And I need to figure out how to kind of do that on my own, even
Yeah,
without the opportunity of actually doing improv.
yeah, that has to be your little warm-up routine is do
Hmm.
improv exercises or something.
Yeah,
Totally.
even if I'm doing it by myself, like I have to figure out a way to make that happen,
Yeah,
because I want to do good, right? I'm not as prepared for my special as I would like to be. It's been a long time coming. I've been doing comedy a long time, but I haven't dedicated myself full time to it, especially not this year. And so I'm rushing it, but I've also made a decision I'm going to do it regardless.
great.
So
It's
good,
bold.
bad, or otherwise, I'm going through it. Now, will
Yeah,
I publish it on YouTube if it's terrible? May not. I may not put it out there publicly if it's bad. But I don't think it's going to be bad. I think we're going to pull this off.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be great. And if you decide not to put the whole thing up there, I'm sure there's going to be clips you could put up.
Mhm.
It's going to be a great experience no matter what happens.
It is going to be a great experience because that's what it's all about, is trying new things, growing. I mean, when you're uncomfortable, when you're out there doing things that you haven't done before, that's where the growth happens.
Absolutely. Pushing against the comfort zone.
Yes. And you help me do that. You do. And the comedy writers room, before I became partnered with you through business, I loved the writers room for the sake of that accountability, because in my mind, having accountability to continue pushing towards your goals and having those dates set and having someone you can talk about with those dates, like, hey Tam, what's up with your special? I haven't heard you mention it for a while. You've called me out before in the writers room, and I'm like, "Ah." So
Right,
it
right.
kind of makes me want to keep striving and working and putting in more reps and getting the quality where it needs to be because of accountability partners.
That's great. Yeah, I love hearing that.
And I think a lot of people could stand to have accountability partners, and even in a loose environment. It doesn't have to be like a formal thing like we do with the writers room. And I know you have these separate accountability meetings as well for your crew. But even something like, me and Ryan became friends through just online acquaintance type situations. And then we agreed to become each other's accountability buddies for comedy.
Great.
So we would, hey, how have you been doing this week on your writing? Have you done any gigs? Have you done any performing? You want to workshop some jokes, and together we have completely different styles. We're very different, but we have both grown so much just by those touch points.
Awesome. Yeah, I have the writer's room is a accountability situation for me. My Substack accountability meetings are another accountability situation. And then I just started this project with a writing partner of mine. We're each other's accountability partner. We make little deadlines. We have a deadline every 4 days where we have to deliver 5 pages that we wrote, because we're co-writing this thing. So
Oh, wow.
I love that. I couldn't live without that. Like I need some sort of external force, or God help me trying to motivate myself, to do something to produce any measurable quantity of work. It's not going to happen, you know.
It's hard. It is hard to motivate yourself. What I do when it's something that I have no choice, I have to motivate myself on, is I'll kind of meditate and visualize
Hmm.
that thing being done. And maybe if it's like a training class I'm putting together, for example, I picture myself delivering that training class and the faces in the crowd being attentive and enjoying the material. And so I will like go forward in my mind in time to when the thing is done and I can enjoy the outcome,
Hmm.
and that can help me kind of motivate to keep going.
I like that. That's good. I've not tried that method.
Well,
I think
visualization is so, I don't know if you've studied NLP at all,
a little
neuro-linguistic
bit.
programming, but it's all about visualization.
Yeah, no, I do use a lot of that. I grew up on Tony Robbins and he was into that. And I think I carry with me a vision of like a project or any kind of creative thing that I'm producing. I carry that with me all the time, and that's kind of all I think about in my head. So I don't have to do a separate motivation to like do that because it's just in there all the time, and it makes me not only do the work and meet my deadlines, but it makes me obsessed with it. It makes me so I'm always thinking about it. And if I have an idea when I'm not working on it, I make a note. It's just like constantly in my head. Um, so yeah, I meditate to relax. It's so funny that you meditate to motivate yourself to do work. I literally do the opposite. I meditate to empty my mind of any work-related thoughts or ambitions, and I just want like complete relaxation and complete checkout. It's a vacation. Meditation is a little mini vacation.
I use it for different things, but yeah, I think I do use it for visualization way more than for relaxation, partly because I have a hard time relaxing. as a chronic overachiever, workaholic type, uh,
Yeah.
it's relaxing for me is not really relaxing. It's either doing something I want to do that I find enjoyable, but it's still somewhat strenuous. Like I love gardening. So gardening for me is relaxing, even though it's like manual labor. I'll be out here slinging dirt. Literally, I moved 2 tons of dirt last month by myself. And it was a workout. I was sore for like 3 days, but I loved
Wow.
it. That to me is relaxing. Or it's I'm asleep. Like
Gotta love sleep. Gotta love sleep.
I have two speeds, go and passed out. That's
Oh,
all I've got.
yeah. That's wonderful.
But I'm curious, how do you stay organized?
Well, I don't know that I am particularly organized, but what little organizational acumen I do have, I'll try to describe. It's all in the computer. It's all in folders. Um, I don't like Google Drive. I find it to be really challenging for someone who is not organized.
Mm.
You can try to organize things by date and by name, but it's still, sometimes I go in there, I'm trying to find something, I just can't find it. I hate that. So, and I don't like any of those other services where you save things on the cloud. That freaks me out. What am I doing? Where is it? I need everything on my computer, and I need all my folders with all my, and my folders on my computer are all very organized. And I have different folders for different things, subfolders. So like from the main root, just about anything I want to get to is 3 or 4 steps away. So it's boom, 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 I'm there. I love that. Like I love computers. And I think we had this conversation before about Apple versus PC.
Mm-hmm.
You're a PC person, right?
I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have never used a PC, and I don't even know how to turn it on. I don't know how to use Windows. It baffles me. The whole concept of Windows is stupid. Uh, Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, they went to this Xerox PARC. Do you know this whole story?
No.
Where they were part of a group of brilliant young minds that Xerox, the copy machine company, brought
Mm-hmm.
together in, I believe, the 1970s to visualize what the computer will look like in the future. What will will there be such a thing as a home computer? And so they had all these people think about this. Steve Jobs and I just said his name a second ago. Now I'm spacing on it. The founder of Microsoft,
Oh,
Bill
Gates.
Gates.
Bill Gates.
They were two of the people in this group, and they had very different visions. And Steve Jobs' vision was the computer would be an extension of your hands and your mind. And if you wanted something to happen, you could make it happen. Bill Gates wanted to see the nuts and bolts. He wanted to do the programming. And so for a long time, PC computers had like DOS, and you had to like type DOS with green letters. Steve Jobs is like, no, 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 no. Nobody wants to see that. He had a beautiful screen that said hello in cursive on it. And so all that stuff was hidden. And that's my vibe. Like, I don't want to see DOS. So the whole concept of Windows is this is a window behind which there is DOS. And I don't want to know about the DOS. I just want it to work, and I want it to be beautiful, and I want it to function. And so that's what Apple does. And so, I have an iPhone. And so it's the same way. I just move it intuitively, and it gets me to my stuff. If Bill Gates invented a phone, it would be where you'd have to program it to tell you how to where to find stuff. Anyway, that's a tangent. But when Apple computers first came out in the early 80s, I started using them, and I got really good at their animation and graphics programs, and they've always been an extension of my hands and my mind ever since. I designed a newsletter for a college job I had in the mid 80s at USC.
Wow.
And then in the late 80s, I started up The Onion with these guys and learned Photoshop and PageMaker and then Quark, and now Adobe InDesign, so you could lay out pages and books. And you can do anything with that stuff. And it's a wonderful tool. And I use it as a tool for organizing my thoughts and ideas as well. So all my stuff is in folders, and some of it is audio notes that I make. Some of it is written. Um, I have a lot of drawings, images, scans, so that's my whole organizational world right there. Apple
Wow.
Computers. Yeah.
I hadn't heard that story, but that's interesting. And yeah, I commend Apple for getting rid of the coding piece because people just want the GUI, the interface to be
Yeah.
pretty and easy and intuitive. And yeah, I can't stand Bill Gates as a human being, and I hate that I am sucked into Microsoft. Um, but I don't see myself ever going to Apple for other reasons. I have political reasons why I don't support the company. And I also have used Apple stuff. My boyfriend had iPhone when we first met. Confused me so much. One of my best friends has a an Apple computer that I've tried to use, and oh my gosh, it's completely different than being on a PC. But I've always been on a PC, and
Foreign.
so
Yeah, it's foreign. So I got to finish that story. The Xerox Corporation got this little group of geniuses to come up with the idea of the mouse, of the um, the the idea of folders and folder storage, the idea of the desktop, all the things we know now on computers. And instead of harnessing that and creating the first computer, they told everybody, okay, you can have it all. Like Steve Jobs called them after and said, hey, is it okay if I like start a company and use all the information that I came up with in your thing? And they're like, yeah, it's fine. Oh, the secretary at Xerox who got the call asked her boss, should I give Steve Jobs all this stuff for free? And the boss like, yeah, it's fine. Not worth anything. Isn't
oh my goodness.
that amazing? Yeah.
Plus, it kind of makes you think because they came up with this stuff and then they did nothing with it. And then I don't know that I mean, I know Xerox is still around, they're still making money, but how much more money could they have done? What else could they have done? How many other jobs could they have had in their company had they ran with this? And it reminds me of Kodak. Kodak had the first patents when it came to digital film,
Yeah.
and they didn't do anything with it. And now just
Behind yeah. It's like
completely obsolete.
Blockbuster. Blockbuster could have owned streaming.
And they
Um,
had it at the beginning. Do
they
you
were doing
recall
it.
they had an
Yep.
online like
No, it was really fun to watch that particular process happen because it was just a train wreck in slow motion. It was like um, that was Netflix's world, and they were delivering DVDs in the mail to people, and they were stealth, focused. They were lean, and they were like, oh, the natural next step to mailing DVDs is to just put it on the computer, stream. And Blockbuster's like, yeah, 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 we got this. It was so fun to watch, like the old, clumsy, slow-moving behemoth who could have owned it. Yeah, Xerox could have been a combination of Microsoft and IBM and Apple right now, and they just let it all go. And Blockbuster they could be HBO Max and Netflix, Disney, all wrapped into one. And now
they
they're out
have
of
the
business.
online. They did have the online when they first like
But they
when
were
Netflix.
so clumsy with it, and they were so slow with it. Um, they were still putting so many resources into the renting of the VHS tapes.
Wow.
Yeah,
I did
very.
find a VHS player recently, by the way,
I have
and I'm
one. I
keeping
have one.
that bad boy.
Yeah, no, it's a delight. I still have a cassette machine.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah, I use all that stuff.
I don't have that, but I did a house clean out not too long ago, and there was just a bunch of stuff that the tenants had left,
Mm.
and one of them was a VHS player that works.
It works.
I'll have to if I come across a cassette player, I will probably pick that up too, although I don't own any cassettes.
I don't know how you live without cassettes. See all those are right there? Those are cassettes right there.
My
Oh,
mom has a bunch though.
yeah.
Man, I grew up listening to music a lot. Like in the womb, my mom was taking me to concerts and stuff. And so when I was born, apparently I wouldn't go to sleep unless there was like thrash metal playing.
Wow.
Yeah. So she has like crazy amounts of just CDs and tapes and things like that. And she never switched to digital. Like she still buys CDs,
Wow.
which is wild. I still have all my CDs, like I kept them. I haven't bought any for ages though.
I have mine too, but I literally don't have a machine that can play them. Where do you get a CD player? I'm sure they make them, but I don't have one. I should
I
get one.
I have a CD player in my car still. I drive a 2010, so
Huh.
my car's older, and it does have like a 6 disc CD changer in there. And I don't want a vehicle that does not. Like I'm probably going to buy a new vehicle next year. I was talking about it. I love my car. I have a Hyundai Genesis. It's the best car I've ever had. It's so fun to drive, but I have a lot of miles on it. So I'm thinking about actually trading it in and getting the same thing, just a newer model.
Yeah, that's what I find a car that works. I stick with it. I don't want to, I don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
My
But
car
I
is
want a
works.
CD player in my car at all times. Like I want to be able to listen to my back in the day. You remember we would make our mixed CD jams? Like I still have those in my car.
You can do all that in the computer, Tam. You don't need a CD. You can make a playlist on YouTube. It'll play exactly the songs you want.
Yeah,
And then
but then you got to deal with
Bluetooth in the
commercials.
phone. No, you don't. YouTube Red. And the Bluetooth in the phone will make it come out of your car speakers. So you can do anything you want. You can make the playlist in the car while you're driving and then play it. Can't
Yeah,
do it on a CD.
yeah. But
Can't
then
do it.
what happens if I don't have internet? Like there's just so many things that could go wrong that I don't like. And I have bought albums on Amazon Music. And then there are some areas of technology where I just am not sure what's going on and
It's a flawed
ignorant.
system. There are ways to download the stuff, in a library, so that if you don't have internet, you still have the stuff. But it's a flawed system,
I
definitely.
haven't been able to figure it out. Like I've bought albums on my Amazon and then I did all this before I went on a long trip. I was flying out of the country and in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to listen to this music on the plane. And then sure enough, I literally had one song I could listen to. It was like one song by Cardi B. And I was like, this isn't going to work.
Awful. That's awful. Yeah, I know Netflix has a thing where you can like download a movie or two for a certain time period for travel.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't use the Amazon Music or YouTube Music, so I don't know how those work, but there's got to be something. Got to
Well,
be
you're an
something.
Apple guy, so you've got your Apple Music and stuff, which is very good. iTunes is the best model out there when it comes to music.
I'm not much of a music person. Like, if I need music, I'll literally turn on the radio and like flip around stations and I'll find something, you know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, do you have a particular genre that draws you in, or you just kind of listen to like whatever, like, oh, that sounds interesting?
No, yeah. I mean, what's on the radio? Like, I don't listen to country music. I don't know any of the artists and I don't know the songs, so that doesn't appeal to me. Also, I'm not a southerner. So, anything that's like pop or rock or, stuff that's on the radio, I'm easy with that. Yeah.
Okay, so you're like top 40s Billboard type.
Yeah, I guess so. And really from any era, like if it's good, I like it. And yeah, that's usually how I roll.
Interesting. So I wouldn't associate country music with the South.
Southerner. I
No.
do. I do. Um, it's
Hmm.
headquartered in Nashville. That's where all country
Um,
comes from. And it sounds Southern. A lot of the singers have Southern accents. And there's Western music too. There's like George Strait,
mm.
Wyoming music.
Yeah, that's what I think of as country Western. And I think that's just because when I was growing up, my grandparents, I grew up in California, and my grandparents would listen to country Western music.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
was, I don't know, I guess I just never thought of the South as being, we don't even have a single country bar here. Like I
What kind
thought
of
Alabama was country. When I moved here, I was excited because I used to live in Texas. I like two-stepping. I do like country music. And along with everything, like there's not one genre that I can't find an artist I like.
what kind of music do people listen to in Alabama then? If it's not country
Pop
music?
and rap
Okay, rap. Okay.
and rock. We do have a rock station, pretty good rock station as well. But yeah, a lot of rap, a lot of pop, a lot of rock. Yeah. We have a place downtown. We have one bar that was trying to make itself country-ish. It's called Whiskey Bottoms, and it plays like country hip hop.
Oh, cool.
That's about the closest we
Genre
get.
I am very intrigued by. When people mix genres, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I do too. Although I don't like it with food. I'm not a super big fan of fusion food.
No, that's no fun.
Mm-mm. But let's see, what do we want to talk about? Well, you help people raise the bar in life all the time through your work. So just
I try to.
for the people, tell them what you offer and how you help other people raise their bar when it comes to comedy writing and other things.
Yeah, so I started doing a Substack newsletter, and every day I put out a post that I sort of see myself as a creative coach. So I came to it through comedy, but I noticed that a lot of people who do any kind of creative work in writing or performing, or I mean, basically writing or performing, I don't really, cartooning is another one, animation. I don't really have a lot of people in my world who do music or art.
Mm.
It's mostly like dealing with words in some way or other. And so I found that a lot of the things I was posting weren't necessarily comedy specific. They're helping people who are writing a novel or, working on it, wanting to do an essay. Um, Performers who do stand-up comedy, but also performers who do like emceeing or, keynotes, stuff like that. And I started posting things that were sort of like motivational, inspirational, as well as like nuts and bolts tips for how to do better at it, how to be more proficient, how to be more efficient, how to be more productive. And that's kind of what I've been doing for the last couple years, or at least year and a half, 2 years, and really enjoying that. Occasionally I'll get like a, a private, client who will pay me to mentor them one-on-one. And that's been really rewarding. The so that's like I started doing comedy, doing all of that with just comedy. So it's like helping people with their stand-up, helping people with their comedy writing, their article writing, because that's the world I come from. But now I've expanded it to be more like any type of creative work that having to do with words and the creation of words. But comedy's still my home, and I still love doing that. We do the writers' room meetings every week, almost every week, as you know. And I also mentor people who do comedy, and I do my own comedy. I'm out there in the trenches with everybody else trying to succeed in this business, and have, knock on wood, made a living doing it my whole life. So, uh, but there's no corporate paycheck, there's no boss. So you always have to keep hustling and keep trying new things and keep exploring. And I hope that my doing that, and I hear this all the time, so I believe it's working. But I hope that that inspires and motivates people, just that I'm out there like working hard and being really productive, trying to put out a lot of product. Um, Seems to be the thing that stops most people, is that first step of actually putting pen to paper, getting on stage. A lot of people are stuck in, oh, I want to do this, but I just don't know how. I don't know how to get started. I'm too scared to get started. So I think it helps them to see somebody just out there doing it, and I'll try something new. I'll put myself out there doing something I've never done before and try it, see if it works. Um, so that's kind of my world right there.
I love it. And I've definitely taken inspiration from you. And you were part of the motivating factor for quitting my job and branching to do my business full time, because I've been doing raise your own bar stuff for a decade or more. Like I've even like had the business LLC for a long time. But I was never confident in myself to do it full time, that I could make a living at it, that I could find business and sustain myself, and that I could be accountable for myself, because without a boss giving you a deadline, telling you tasks to work on, there were times in my jobs in the past where I would have to come up with my own work, sure. But then I would still have to run it by people, get approval for next steps, things of that nature, get direction from them. Now I have to be that boss for myself, and it can be very hard. But you showed me that it can be done. And here I am. I saved up my pennies so that I could quit and not struggle financially, although I am struggling financially. Not necessarily anymore, but I was at first, because I was spending money like I was still working.
Mm.
for the first 6 months or so. And then I was like, oh, wait, I'm dwindling down my savings and I don't have that many customers yet. So I need to rein it in. And that was an adjustment period, but that's what you do, right? If you want it,
Yep.
and I want it because I don't want to work for anybody else. I don't want to have to. I had somebody just yesterday tell me there's an opportunity at NASA. And back in the day, I would have loved to work for NASA. It was a dream of mine to
Hmm.
try to work for NASA. I was working for the Department of Defense, and NASA's right here in Huntsville.
Yeah, I figured they're right there.
And I said, no, not interested. Thank you. But if NASA needs any training or anything, I would love to come in there and talk to them. It's
Yeah,
hard to say no to stuff that used to be your dream.
be a consultant and go in there and train. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I admire that, Tam. I'm glad that happened, and I'm glad to have been any part of that process. Um, there's nothing like working for yourself, even if you're struggling, even if you're
Yeah.
not making a lot of money, it's so much better. Like, I just don't like being a slave. I really don't enjoy that. And when you're working for someone else, no, no splitting hairs about it. You are a slave. You are giving your time to them. I mean, I guess slaves don't get paid, so maybe it's a bad analogy,
Yeah.
but you're selling your time. And so they own you. They own your time. Your time is the most valuable thing you have. With
Yes.
the possible exception of your own body, like your time is like the top asset. So giving that to someone for cheap, like there's just I could never do it. I could never do it. And I've done it periodically here and there throughout my life. Um, Certainly when I was starting out, I had to have jobs. And then after I sold the Onion, I went back and worked for the Onion as an employee for like 2 or 3 years. Hated every second of it.
Wow. I
Hated
bet.
every second of it. So yeah, I don't know how people do it. And then they got their commute. So they're getting up and their whole day belongs to someone else. And they come home and it's like they're beat. They got to watch a TV show and go to sleep. And they
Yeah.
get a weekend. I don't like it. I can't do it.
Well, I worked for a variety of companies over the years because I had fears about being financially insecure. Growing up poor, I vowed I would never be poor if I could help it. That's why I've also pursued a lot of education to try to get those skills to where my time is valuable. I can market my time. And I got to the point where I was crushing it and I was on the verge of being promoted from senior manager to director. And I was salary. I was making a lot of money, like way more money than I ever made in my life. But because I was salary, and because that sometimes translates to answering emails late at night, answering emails when you're on vacation, etc., that didn't really look financially the way that it was like in the beginning when I first got that job. I was like, oh my God, look at all this money I'm making. But then when I looked at how many hours I was putting in, I was like, ooh, I'm kind of being ripped off a little bit here and there. And now I'm making very little. I'm making like a fourth of what I was making.
Wow.
And that's okay because I live very frugally and like my car is a 2010. I don't have debt. Like I'm in good shape financially, so it's not that big of a deal. And Andrew helps with household bills in the meantime until I get where I need to be. Um, I would rather be poor and live in a cardboard box than be unhappily rich.
Totally. Yeah, I'm with you. And speaking as someone who has been homeless as an adult, I can tell you that it is like the time that I was homeless was in the late 90s, and it was literally the happiest time of my life.
Huh.
Yeah, it was about 6 months to a year. My career was going so well. Um, and my business partner at the Onion and I decided we're going to take all the profits from the company and we're going to put it into better pay for writers, put it back into the business. And so we couldn't afford to pay ourselves anymore. So I had no income and I just was living in the recording studio where we recorded the Onion radio news show. And I showered at the Y down the street. And then I had a series of friends who let me sleep on their couch. Doesn't even matter. Like, I don't even think of oh my God, I didn't have a house. I didn't have my stuff. Didn't why does that matter? Who cares? You know, America is the richest country in the world. So when you're homeless, you're basically doing better than the average person in any other country who lives in a diphtheria infected swamp, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, there's differences between like you're couch surfing versus somebody living under the bridge. There's different levels of homelessness.
Totally.
Um,
Well, they're all the same. If the person who lives under the bridge doesn't have any friends that they can call on to let them sleep on their couch.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And that's terrible. And obviously, those poor people have a lot of mental health struggles, and they have family struggles. So
Hmm.
they don't have the
Addiction,
wherewithal. They have addiction, absolutely.
trauma. Yeah.
So yeah, I was not a person living on the streets, and I did not have an addiction problem. I was addicted to my work. So it didn't matter that I was homeless because I was at the office all the time and I
Yeah.
slept at the office, you know.
Yeah,
Uh,
that makes sense. It's just funny when people hear the term homeless, I would think they would picture like somebody that's destitute, addicted, filthy, living under a bridge, but that's not the case. There are so
I
many people that
think
are what
that's
they call homeless. Um, I've been seeing a lot more sleeping at Walmart. Like Walmart apparently will let you park overnight. So
yeah.
now there's just like people that live in the Walmart parking lot. Like that's where they live.
Yeah, and there's some rich people who are homeless who just move from Airbnb to Airbnb.
Huh.
Yeah, they don't want the stress of owning a home or renting a place, you know.
Interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't call that homeless. I would definitely come up with a different label for that
Yeah, they have
because
a place
that
to
is
crash. They have a home.
that's like rich privilege. Like you have to be rich
Oh,
and privileged to be able to do something like that. And yeah, that's wild. I do a lot of outreach with the homeless and I have for years
oh, good for you,
because
Sam. That's awesome.
like it stemmed from I have a lot of addicts in my family. And so I started out, I did a lot of outreach with addicts. And then that kind of segued into doing outreach with homeless because they kind of go hand in hand.
Totally. Yeah.
And it's hard. It's really hard because I've just seen so many different ways addiction can destroy a person, and I can see how to help, but I can't make choices for other people. I mean, that's the way life is. You can't choose for other people, even if you can see so clearly what they should do.
Yeah, and that's the big problem with with homelessness, the kind of homelessness you're talking about, which is like destitute on the street, no friends, no family. Um, the bridge is your only protection from the elements. You can help those people and give them every service in the world. They're probably going to self-sabotage. They're probably going to kill themselves, you know, one way or another. They're going to end up back on the street. They're going to be outside. Um, I mean, my God, I wish that I my fondest dream is that homelessness is solved. Like the government just decides, okay, we've done the research. Here are the things that work the best. We're going to implement these in every area. And we don't care about the politics. We don't care if people complain, hey, you can't give those people homes. Why are you giving them free stuff or whatever? I just say, do it, solve the problem so that as few people as possible fall through the cracks. That would just make me the happiest person in the world because nothing makes me sadder. Nothing makes me feel like I live in a failed society than like I was in Oakland recently.
Mm.
The streets of Oakland are lined, every street is lined with homeless people. Just like shopping cart after abandoned van, after tent, after cardboard box. And it's dangerous and it's
Yeah.
sad. And it's like, you got to do something about it. You can't just have that be part of the society. That's just not acceptable.
Well, it used to be they would have these like shanty towns where the homeless camp would be, right? Well, now they've gotten rid of those. They're
Clear
not
them
even
out.
allowed now. And so
Yeah.
what does that lead to? These people are just posting up outside the 7-Eleven and, on the sidewalk wherever they can
Yeah.
because they've taken away the option of having these homeless camps. And we have that here in Huntsville. We used to have 4 homeless camps that were
Mm.
legally but sanctioned by the city where homeless people could stay. There were rules and you couldn't have kids in them, for example. If there was children, the camp would be shut down. It was adults only. And it worked well. Well, then as the city continues to grow, we need the land for other things. they've shut it down. Now there's one left.
Mm.
And that one is going to be shut down. Well, then what? Where are these people going to go? Because they still are homeless. There, if anything, there's more homeless now than there was.
Yeah. Um, Here in Minneapolis, they put up, there was a huge homeless community under this main bridge of the highway overpass. It's like a 1 block long bridge. So it was lined with homeless people, really deep sidewalks and everything. They put up this huge like fence to make the majority of the sidewalk inaccessible, and there are spikes on top of the fence.
Yep.
Saw that and I was like, that's your solution for homelessness? It's like a medieval solution.
Mm-hmm.
Like they literally push them further into the street. So now when you drive down the street, homeless people are in the street with you. And they're living like right next to the car tires. It's just like the dumbest idea. And Minneapolis is supposed to be like a progressive place. You know, Tim Walz is our governor. We're supposed to be hey, let's help the less fortunate state. That's their policy.
They
That's what
just push them in the gutter, literally.
they're literally pushing them right into the gutter. So, oh my God, the incompetence. And then in California with Governor Newsom, like they get $1 billion a year budget to help homelessness. And it just goes to these like programs and it gets like absorbed by all these consultants and all these people make money, but no homeless person is helped.
Very
It's
few, very few.
sick. It's sick.
It really is. And that's, you know, there's a lot of greed. There
I
are
know.
solutions out there, but the people who have the solutions don't have the money, and the people who have the money don't actually want a solution.
Nope. They want their money.
Yeah. So I
Um,
don't know how to help with that. And that's one of the reasons why I left government.
hmm.
Because I got to the point where I had all these great ideas that I wasn't being allowed to implement. And I got frustrated to the point where it's like, okay, so I'm, you don't want to make it right. So why am I here?
Yeah, you got to run for office, Tam. That's what you got to do.
No, no. I actually had that dream. That was my goal since I was a child, was to run for office. And I let go of that dream when I realized, after peeking behind the curtain, I saw how the sausage is made,
Yeah.
and I don't want any part of that circus. It is a circus.
Oh,
So
I can only imagine. I can only imagine. And it takes a certain type of narcissistic personality, I think, to desire and then pursue that kind of power.
I
I-
agree. I think the best politician is the reluctant leader, the one that doesn't want to be in charge, but gets kind of pushed into that role because of how altruistic they are. And
Yeah,
that is the solution that's the only solution in my mind that would fix things in America, in California, etc.
that was my favorite legend of the I forget what it was called, but it was like the five Chinese emperor kings of
Mm.
ancient lore, where they would literally find the person in China who wanted it the least. And so they found this old guy in this old little village who's up on the mountaintop, and he's like, "Leave me alone! I don't want to have any part of this." They would make him be the emperor.
Oh, that
I
is
love,
great.
I just
I'm
love
not
it.
familiar with that as like a fable or something or a
Yeah,
parable
it's
or
like a
anything.
Chinese myth, a fable.
Interesting. Yeah, that
Tam,
seems like the best, but Scott, this has been a pleasure. Is there any advice you want to give to people, whether they are creatives or not, about raising the bar and staying motivated, other than some of the stuff you've already shared?
yeah, there's one thing that I'll throw out there, and it's mostly for creative people. I think if you're not interested in doing, some kind of creative work, I'm not your guy. That's fine. For a creative person, the most motivating and empowering thing you can do that will raise your bar instantly and on a regular basis is to produce work. And like I was telling you, a lot of people are kind of wannabes. They're like, oh, I want to write a book someday, or oh, I'd love to be brave enough to try stand up, to get on stage or whatever. Just do it. Like start writing, get yourself on stage and just start talking. Take the step, take that bold step and do the thing and try to do it regularly. You'll grow so much. It's like what you were talking about earlier about like when you push past your comfort zone, that's where growth is. So I don't know of any better way, like more fundamental way to raise your bar than to start building a body of work. and just start writing, start producing, because you leave it. Like you suddenly you have this body of work behind you. Oh my God, I did all this stuff. And all I had to do was show up and start doing stuff, you know? But people go years and years and they don't have stuff. And they'll look back over the year and it's like, how many books did I write? How many funny articles did I write? How many hours was I on stage? How many people did I make laugh? And if I looked back and saw that all that was zero, I'd be really, really unmotivated and depressed. But to look back and see that, oh, I've done a lot of things. Like this shelf right here is all things that I've made, you know, books that I've written, CDs that I've produced, audiobooks, cassettes. My movies are my movies are up here. But that comforts me. Like it makes me feel like, oh, my life isn't being wasted. I'm actually doing something.
Yeah. Look what I can do. And look what I did. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So that's my one bit of parting advice.
So get out there and actually do stuff, even if you suck at first, which of course you're going to in
Of
most
course
cases,
you're gonna
and that's
suck.
okay.
Yeah, of course. Like my first books, first ones right in there, terrible. Don't buy them, you know? But that's like that's the when you are an infant and you're learning to walk, you're terrible at it and you
Mm,
fall constantly. But you don't give up. You keep trying until you get the hang of it, and then you're in a groove. You're doing okay. Pretty soon you're running, you're winning state championships in track. You're doing all right.
I love that. Well, that was great advice. And Scott, do you mind sharing where people can follow you and how people can get involved with your work? Maybe join the writer's room or even come see you at some of your speaking events. I know you've got possibly some things, I don't know if they're public or not, that are coming up, but
Yeah, I have one public thing coming up. It's a writer's retreat in Rhinebeck, New York in October. Um, and do I have a link for that? I don't have an easy link for that. Um, but
I can share the link that we put in the
oh, if you
Substack
could
the
share
other
some
day.
links. Yeah, if you could share some links, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
People can find me on Substack where I do my daily article, and they can find me at howtowritefunny.com where I teach and train people interested in learning comedy. And if you Google me, even if you misspell my name, you'll find my books and my YouTube channel and my social media and anything else. Yeah.
Nice. And that's Scott Dickers.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Scott. This has been wonderful. Thanks for sharing your wisdom and your time with the podcast, and can't wait to do it again sometime.
It's been fun chatting with you, Tam.